Sploosh.
You're a freak.
Let's dive in
Okay, here we go.
to this week's episode.
You're such a fucking weirdo. So how you been doing, man? Since
I've been working hard, putting some graphs together, putting some methodologies together,
nice.
writing a paper.
Have you started the paper yet?
I've not started the discussion. I've started writing the sections, but
Like
I've not started writing the actual meat and potatoes, as someone might say, or
Bangers and mash.
Is this episode just going to be euphemisms for dicks?
Meaty battered sausage.
A big cock.
Jesus Christ. So what's been going on?
Jepstein.
Jeffrey
Epstein. That's what's been going on.
Because you were telling me briefly.
The guy who was suicided or maybe killed himself. Who knows? Allegedly suicided himself, but was he suicided by someone else? Who knows? The cameras were switched off. He was taken off suicide watch. The guards were asleep.
It's very suspicious.
And they were both working overtime.
Yeah.
Long overtime. And ties nicely in with the conspiracy episode we missed.
We missed it like a couple of days.
We missed it by like 2 days or something, 3 days.
So
or something
ridiculous.
Stupid. I think it happened on like the Monday.
Yeah.
And we recorded.
Would have been hard to incorporate that though, I suppose.
Nah. Everything came out so quick.
Immediately, sure.
And it's obviously Paedophile Island.
Yeah.
So
you're from there.
I'm not from there. Disclaimer: I'm not from there. I'm from the UK.
One other thing that we have looked into is that open mic website.
Interests.
Interests.
Yeah, right, interesting, but spelt wrong.
Right.
Continue with your thought.
Yeah, so open mic is essentially this website. How would you describe it? It's open mic, but mic with a Q.com.
Yeah, it's sort of like Twitter, but with voices. I think the point is to allow people to have a platform where they can speak in a longer form, and a slightly longer form. It's videos of like a few seconds up to about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And people post them, and then you get
responses and reactions.
Exactly. You can have text responses. You can have
audio responses.
Exactly. So it's just like a.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
It does. I do think
it looks like it has a lot of potential.
It just needs ironing out and stuff like that.
I think once they have an app together,
then it could take off.
It'll kick off a bit.
Yeah. One other thing that has obviously happened recently is the tragic death of Officer Andrew Harper. Have you heard about that?
I've seen it, but I've not.
Do you know anything really about it?
I know that he was just married.
For 4 weeks.
Yeah.
He'd been married.
Yeah.
That's absolutely horrible.
And something about it, was he dragged along the side of a vehicle?
Yeah, so him and his partner were called to a burglary, and they got there. All the information that's out at the moment, last I checked, was he got hit by a car, and then another car ran him over while he was on the floor, and that just basically dragged him along underneath the car.
So is that 2 getaway vehicles then?
I would guess so.
Yeah.
10 people have been arrested. One of them is a 13-year-old boy.
Okay.
So it looks like there was a gang of people going around trying to rob people. Panicked when the police turned up and just
sped off.
Yeah.
Ran over a police officer twice.
Yeah.
That's probably a bad decision on your part.
Well, think, right? Guys. Like, you're not going to clean all that blood off the bottom of your fucking car.
Don't know. Discreet cleaning service.
Because everyone knows a discreet cleaning service.
Yeah,
we get rid of all your blood.
We need the janitor.
Yes, we do. Yeah. We need it to clean. So as you've said, last time we were talking about conspiracies and stuff like that. And I want to try and sort of keep with the theme of mystery.
And we need that chord. Bling.
Bling. I want to stick with the sort of theme of mystery and go for like mysteries in ancient Earth. So like monuments and stuff like that. So there are a few obvious ones, and then there are a few, I think there's a couple that I didn't know about, and I don't think you will have known about either. So to start, at home in the UK, Stonehenge.
Close to home.
Yeah.
Down the road, just down the M1.
Is it close by to us specifically? Is it not
south.
northern? Oh, it's south.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm gonna
have a cheeky look.
Have it, because that'll be.
It's in Wiltshire.
Oh god, I don't know geography. I don't know UK geography.
But it was It's basically a stone. Oh, well, basically everyone knows what Stonehenge is. But it's a stone circle that was constructed between 3000 and 1500 BC on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England.
Down south somewhere.
Yeah. And it's so old that we'll probably never know its purpose. Actually, no one will ever be able to go for sure. This is
not the hard, like, exact what it was for.
Yeah.
But obviously its connection to the stars.
Yes. It's more the sun, I think.
Star.
And obviously by extension
is
of that.
Is the sun a star?
Oh, fuck. You've got me there. Yeah, by extension, that means there's obviously a fair few theories on why it's there and stuff like that, because it's so old. So the first one that I found quite interesting was the notion of it being a healing site. So skeletons were found nearby with signs of sickness and various injuries. Only problem with that is anywhere people are going to be buried, they're probably going to be sick or injured.
Yeah.
So
that's what I've always seen. I've always seen that evidence considered as evidence for it being a burial site, ceremonial burial site, rather than.
That's a stronger thought than a place of healing.
Yeah.
The one thing that people say could support this healing site theory is chunks of the stone seem to have been chipped off. So people interpreted that as people chipping off healing stones, like talismans. But again, that could just be people carving the rock in the shape that they wanted it to be.
Yeah, it could also be. Well, it depends whether the damage was dated or not. It could be people taking bits off of it
and going, "Oh, Stonehenge," rather than exactly. Semi-modern people getting chunks off. Yeah. As you've just said, then there's obviously the notion of it being a burial site for important people. One interesting thing to note is they seem to find an equal amount of men, women, and children buried, or a roughly equal amount. And then they also found an incense bowl and the head of a mace, which apparently was a sign of wealth in ancient times. I don't know how we'd know that, especially as ancient as Stonehenge. But
I could definitely imagine that incense would be used as a ritualistic sort of last rite.
Yeah.
I could definitely imagine that. And I could definitely imagine that at the time, what would have been considered the ruling classes or the wealthy classes were involved in the ritualistic practices, because that's historically,
like priests and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
That's historically what sort of makes sense. It's always it tends to be the sort of upper ruling classes that work in the sort of religious
areas.
Yeah.
And then probably the most compelling one, which is one you already know about, is the notion of it being a solar calendar. So the entrance faces the rising sun during the summer solstice, and then an avenue nearby that sort of leads up to it is aligned with the winter solstice sunset. And then sort of archaeological evidence seems to suggest that pigs were slaughtered around December or to January, which could obviously suggest some sort of celebration or a feast during the winter solstice. Right. And then this is the bit that you obviously told me about, that the if you stand at the certain inner stones and look through certain gaps in the outer stones, it allows you to see the various sunsets and sunrises of the summer and winter solstice.
Yeah.
So it's basically a seasonal calendar, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I could definitely imagine, though, obviously there's always been a lot of superstition regarding, especially until we sort of actually had a good idea about what's really going on in the universe, rather than, just being here on a flat plane. Not actually on a flat plane for you flat earthers. We're actually on a round, but it looks like it's
flat plane. Yeah.
Here on a flat plane, looking out at what could be sort of anything, just vast emptiness.
Yes.
Obviously there was a lot of superstition, so I could definitely imagine that the reason it's built like a sort of solar calendar is it is actually related then to its use as either a burial site or some kind of ceremonial site, right?
Sure. So you might have these sort of, for example, like a mass burial or some sort of burial during a summer or winter solstice with the sun setting oh, the sun's setting, we can see it through this gap, we're saying goodbye to this person that's died, or something like that, for example.
Right, or it could just be that they're thinking, okay, well, they obviously held this importance over the solstice.
Yeah.
So they could be saying that maybe that's the time of the year that they want their dead to be looked at.
Yeah, it's hard to tell,
yeah,
and there's certain beliefs and stuff
the
like that.
mythology surrounding the people that developed it.
So do you not think then that it was essentially a timekeeper, a yearly timekeeper? Because I was thinking about that, and I do think that's, even now, it's sort of a difficult concept to get around unless you're taught it from a young age. Do you know what I mean? So for ancient people to go, this happens every year, even though they didn't know what a year was, and sort of to build something to reflect that, that's quite a complex both thought process and physical process to go through.
Yeah, I think that my problem with that idea is that I know, or I would imagine that, there's the seasons, and there's the regular seasonal changes, so you don't necessarily need a yearly clock.
Because you'd have snow and rain,
or at least
and
the weather,
autumn, leaves falling,
exactly,
and stuff like that.
Different animals coming out, different.
So you'd have other triggers to show you that's what was happening.
I would imagine, yeah. So
and it'd be a lot of, considering the size of the stones, it'd be a lot of effort to go through, when you don't need that to show you what time of year it is.
Exactly, when you've already got this backup how the world's changing around you.
Yeah, so you think it holds some form of religious or faithful purpose.
Yeah, think about what we do now. We build huge churches, we build huge mosques, we build big fancy synagogues. Like we have these, all the world's religions have these temples that are very grandiose. Even the religions that are more sort of subtle in how they deal with wealth, they still have all these sort of grandiose stories, grandiose ideas, grandiose structures. So it's easy to see how that's where these churches came from. These big sort of ancient but large monuments that have been created. It sort of makes sense to me. That narrative follows through culturally.
Especially, obviously, it seems that the further back you go, the more reliance people had on a faith or a religion. So it would make sense going back that far, that a monument that big that has withstood the test of time is most likely to be some form of religious monument.
Yeah, what if they worship the sun? That makes perfect sense.
Praise the sun. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because that's what brings light and heat and life.
Exactly, and that's what the solstice really is about.
Yeah.
It's about the sun having made the days longer again.
Yeah.
So I could imagine that they worship the sun in some sense, and it was a religious, like an offering to the sun almost.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's obviously not even a way to really hypothesize on this, but do you think that when there was a civilization, when the civilization that built Stonehenge was around, do you think they had a village or a town around, not necessarily directly around, but around Stonehenge, or do you think it was a monument that you had to sort of take a pilgrimage to?
So I think I don't know whether I'm correct about this, because it's been a while since I saw this information or heard this information. I believe there's evidence of a settlement nearby, but not super close.
Right.
So it kind of depends on what they believe. Did they want to keep their dead close by, or did they have, sort of some idea about death and disease, even if it wasn't like a well formulated one? Or
because that's going a long way back for people to understand those sort of concepts of disease and stuff like that.
Certain cultures, though, have always
been, not even if they didn't understand it, they've taken measures because they sort of understand the notion but can't understand where the disease is specifically coming from.
Well, they make the associations, they just don't necessarily know about the science.
Yes, it's like miasma during the plague. So people would obviously stuff them masks and stuff with flowers, like the doctors, because they thought it was the smells, and that makes sense. Bad smells are being caused by bacteria and stuff like that.
And it's also a useful idea. telling people it's bad smells, right? That will keep you away from things that smell bad, because you won't want to go near them because they'll make you ill. And then by extension, a lot of the times it is things that smell bad that are bad for us.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the porcupine quill thing, where if you tell a child that a porcupine can throw its quills, it won't go near the porcupine. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Same with the smells, right? Don't go near the smells because they're bad. It doesn't matter that you've got the wrong idea about
as long as it helps
the
situation.
Exactly. So I could imagine something like that. So maybe I think they have a decent idea of where the nearest settlement was.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100%.
Not 100% sure. So there's actually another monument that is designed to face the solstices, sets and rises in America, in Ohio of all places, which I find quite interesting, that it shows the similarities or the parallels that completely different unrelated cultures of humans the similar associations that they can make between the sun having some form of significance and creating monuments to sort of cater to that. But at the same time, the monuments look completely different. So obviously Stonehenge is a stone circle. This place in Ohio is called the Serpent Mound. Ooh. And it's basically a mound that's in the shape of a snake. Like it sort of winds around, and then at the end it sort of winds around its own sort of tail. But the head of the serpent faces the summer solstice sunset. And people think that the location of the Serpent Mound already had a natural location, a naturally forming location pointing that direction, and they just accentuated it.
Okay. So I because it was naturally made that way already, then I would, obviously they could have sort of said, okay, well, this is facing the place where we want it to face. Let's use this. But it could have just been...
Someone could have seen this sort of like maybe even a sort of angular rock pointing, and they just happened to see it at the point that the sun was setting.
Yeah.
And they almost potentially had this spiritual experience to themselves.
Yeah.
Where they thought, oh, this must mean something.
Yeah.
Because humans are always trying to find meaning, whether there is or isn't meaning. And then when, okay, we have to build something here. We need to remember where this is, sort of thing.
Or it could have just been, they saw the fancy formation, and then they've been like, oh, that's weird. That's something that you don't see every day. Let's play with it.
Yeah.
It could just as easily have been that, especially if it was already naturally formed that way. I think the big thing about Stonehenge is like there's no other rocks like that for a long distance.
No. Even other stone circles in England, they're not to that scale.
Yeah.
I've seen one. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called the Stone Circle of the Dancing Ladies or something like that. And it's basically small rocks in a circle, and that's it. Obviously, that could be the remnants of a similar stone circle, or it could just be. I think more likely it's just
small stones
that have been buried. Yeah.
Yeah.
Onto pyramids.
Also, not much about Ohio.
No, I think that's all. Because it's not. It's just a mound. There's no physical.
Yeah.
It's just where the ground is shaped,
and it's just pointing the right way. So. Yeah.
So there's not really much. There's not much you can take from Stonehenge, but at least with Stonehenge, there's physical rocks that people have interacted with to make it like that.
And you can obviously see how all the alignments.
Yes. There's a place called Teotihuacan. So this isn't the pyramids we'll talk about the pyramids in a moment.
I would imagine that might be Teotihuacan pronounced.
Teotihuacan.
Is it Huacan?
Yes.
Teotihuacan. That's how I would probably pronounce that. I don't know. Let's find out later.
So this is a area in Mexico, central Mexico, where the sort of Aztec-looking pyramids.
Yeah.
The sort of darker stone, generally flat at the top. They're like that, and they predated the Aztecs by around 1,000 years, which I find quite interesting. Do you know where the Aztecs were? Would that be South America, like far South America?
Around there.
One of the pyramids was found to contain the bodies of around 100 human sacrifices.
Okay.
Which is kind of fucked up.
Do you know how they know their sacrifices?
See, that's what I thought when I was reading it. I was sort of like, well, they don't even know who it was that inhabited there. The Aztecs found it abandoned.
Right.
They found it like long in ruins.
Okay.
And no writing was found anywhere nearby, so you can't know anything about it. All it is a structure. It's similar to Stonehenge in that respect, I suppose. As much as there are these big structures, there's no information other than these bodies, essentially, as to why it was there, who built it, etc.
No alignment to the stars or anything like that.
Just monuments.
What is it, step pyramid, you were saying?
Yes. I think it's a group of them, maybe 3 or 4 of them. Okay. But I think only one of them contained.
In the jungle?
I think it's surrounded by forest, but it's on sort of like a cleared area. Yeah. So that's quite interesting. The trouble with these sort of places is it's almost too open to interpretation. There's not quite enough information to sort of go, okay, well, because we know about this, you could take this from it, etc.
I can't remember exactly the ideas off the top of my head. I think Graham Hancock has some ideas about the civilizations that sort of came before the Aztecs and the Mayans.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the civilization because when you said the Aztecs found it abandoned, I've heard Graham Hancock talk about something similar to that.
Oh, really?
Either the Mayans or the Aztecs finding
areas. A ruined civilization.
Exactly.
But what happened to them? What could have possibly happened to them?
Oh, loads of things. Think about how quick disease can wipe people out. There's lots of things, especially in the rainforest. Yeah. Especially where there's a lot of trees and it's so warm and there's a lot of, it's easy for life to flourish in conditions like that. Obviously, that's why some areas like that are so dense with
life,
strange life.
Yeah, loads of various life, loads of insects and weird birds and all sorts of stuff.
I think he has this idea that a small group of the civilization from before survived and were passing technology down the line.
Right.
Maybe even that some of them sort of travelled the world and were spreading technology throughout the world.
Sure. I think I saw him showing some sort of hieroglyphs. It might have been Egyptian with a bag, yes, and that's the symbolic, or not even necessarily symbolic, the giving the technologies to exactly, yeah. So now onto the real pyramids.
The real pyramid.
So I'm going to go straight into Graham Hancock's dimensional information because that's quite interesting. Okay, so you're going to have to help me sort of interpret this because I'm just going to basically go through and throw out numerical information.
Okay.
So more than 2.5 million stone blocks were used.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely mental.
This is the hard thing, and they were all massive.
Yeah. Like, the whole pyramid weighs 6 million tons.
Yeah.
It is 481 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Its base spans 13 acres. And each base side is 750 feet long.
Yeah.
And it is targeted towards true north within 3/60ths of a total degree. Which, the accuracy of that, I don't think you could say it's a coincidence. I think that's so unlikely.
The problem is I don't think we have any idea how they could have developed any technology. Well, the thing about civilizations like this, the thing about Egypt is so much of the information was lost.
Yes. Similar with Rome and stuff like that.
Yeah, obviously because of the catastrophes that sort of happened.
And I think with Egypt specifically, one thing I was thinking about is it's all desert, so any information, be them relics or written information or buildings, are going to be swallowed by the environment maybe quicker or maybe easier than in many other places.
Well, all it takes is for...
Well, think about how sand's blowing.
Blustery, yeah.
Yeah, and like an entire building could be buried and it couldn't be uncovered for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
So there could be all sorts of... The pyramids could be way bigger than we realise and half of it could be buried. Yeah. I think that's unlikely because I think that they used like some form of sonar to map out the pyramids. So I'm sure they've used some sort of technology like that.
Yeah, because they found I think it was a couple of years back, they found a load of hidden chambers that they didn't know about before.
Yeah, there was one where there's like basically a small window hole, like a small tunnel that you could fit, like, I don't know.
It's an air vent, I think.
Yes, but the people put a motorized robot in there with a drill, and they drilled through, and they found a door at the end.
Right.
Not a passageway that any human could fit in.
Yeah, right.
And then through the door there were more hieroglyphics.
Okay.
So they sort of think that maybe there was some sort of spiritual significance to it, because you couldn't get there, but there was also a small hatch door. So how did they get there?
Yeah.
But why were the hieroglyphics in there if you weren't supposed to get there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess unless it was their idea that there was an actual, a physical spirit that would leave the body, and it was just a way out.
A way for it to get out. Sure. But it does blow my mind that there could be way more passages and rooms that even we realise now. And again, like I just said, there could be entire pyramids that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Which are slowly getting eroded away underneath the sand.
Yes. Because I don't know how much sand moves on itself when it's just in there.
Buried, yeah. But then to relate all that sort of numerical data to the Earth, so the pyramid's height times 43,200 equals the polar radius of the Earth. So that is from one pole straight through the Earth to the other, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not good with all these mathematics like terms because I hate maths.
Well, it'd be half of that. Diameter would be all the way across.
Okay.
So it would be half of all the way through.
And then the base perimeter, so around the four sides, times 43,200 equals the equatorial circumference of the Earth. So through that, we know that the pyramid holds the dimensions of our planet at a scale of 1 to 43,200.
That's an interesting number, though. Why 43,000?
So I think I saw Graham Hancock talking about this, and I forgot to write it down, which kind of pissed me off, but never mind. The Earth has some sort of wobble as it's spinning, and the amount it wobbles by is something like 72 something. And if you times 72 by 600, you reach 43,200. It's something like that. So you can still get.
Come from?
He didn't say that. That's that. You need it all to relate to something. You can't just pick any random number.
This is the thing. I love his ideas, but sometimes he does. It's called. I tell you what. When Sam and Jordan were debating,
yeah,
Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, they called it Jesus smuggling. So the idea that you say all this stuff, you give a load of evidence for it, you explain your ideas. And then you just sneak one little thing in, right? So he's going, oh well, it's 43,200. 600 times 72 is 43,200.
And because everything else makes sense, you ignore the one that doesn't.
Exactly, it doesn't get questioned.
Yeah, I think the one thing that frustrated me about Graham Hancock is I was completely with him up until the point he was talking about what was it? How they potentially built it. So I have some ideas which we'll talk about in a minute, but he was suggesting that perhaps these ancient civilizations had some sort of access to capabilities of their brain, so telekinesis basically. And I like the idea of going, there could be we could have dormant abilities in us that because they've been lost through the ages, we don't know how to access them. But I think that's based on what I understand about biology and the brain and the mind and stuff like that. It's just I just sort of look at him and I go, you have such good ideas, but stuff like that ruins it. Like, you can't just go, maybe they did this with no reason at all to believe that.
Yeah, I think even from sort of a physics perspective, there's no real, without making sort of big leaps, there's no real mechanism that you can foresee for
having those abilities.
Exactly for sort of distance communication with a physical object.
Yeah. There's nothing that suggests that could be a thing.
Not really.
No.
And I mean, people will say, well, quantum mechanics this and quantum mechanics that. That's not. The reason it's quantum mechanics is because it tends to only work on a really small scale, and on a really small scale. And when we are pushing it up, we're finding some quantum aspects in larger systems, but not anything that you would go, oh, okay, well, this means that we can move things with our minds, or we can move things with the force, or stuff like that. I think it's, and like you're saying, that is my main qualm with him as well, is
as much as he has good ideas, he makes too many leaps.
Yes, yeah, he makes one or two leaps where he's like, oh, well, if you just do this, then it all makes sense, but I don't really know why I'm doing this.
Yeah,
it's like you
can't half-arse it.
Exactly.
But in terms of if assuming that the Great Pyramid reflecting the Earth's dimensions is accurate, and they did that purposefully, like, how does an ancient civilization that doesn't even necessarily know that they're on a planet work this out?
Yeah.
Because that's and I suppose that's part of where the notions that aliens could have helped them, or some form of other advanced being, or be it a really ancient human who still had this knowledge, or aliens, whatever it could be. How would they do that?
You would have to have a strong understanding of how distance works and how shapes work. So if you had, a decent understanding about how the sky worked, and you sort of could understand that, right, okay, these are coming over in a pattern, the sun and the moon, they're coming around in a pattern, and they're always in this sort of place at the same time, and okay, so that means they must be going round us. Then all of a sudden you can say, okay, well, how far away are they?
Yeah.
And you can calculate that.
And work out stuff
like that. And you
can
say, okay, if they're this far away, how long has it taken them for us to go around us?
Yeah. And
so then, by extension, how large is the Earth?
Yeah. And people do think that Egyptians were really good at mathematics, don't they?
Yeah.
I suppose they must have been to create these structures.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a lot of hypotheses that there's a lot of ancient information that was lost to civilizations like the Egyptians, like the Greeks, etc., etc. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that they did have a strong enough understanding of how the world worked and our place in the universe to be able to calculate things like that.
Yeah.
It's just then why they would do that.
Yeah. Because that's a lot of effort to go to just for the sake of... And again, it could have some sort of religious
well, that's
significance.
what they are, isn't it? It's tombs. And unless they're supposed to be almost like an effigy of the world.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so the base is the circumference, the height is the radius.
Yes.
So it is the mic drop.
Whoops.
We're done. So the base is the circumference, the height is the radius, so it is the globe on a smaller scale. It is literally
a representation of the planet,
of the Earth, right? So they're putting them in this other representation of the Earth, and it could just be a monument to the place that they live.
One other question I have is, how do you think they built it? How do you think they got those stones as high as they needed to?
Well, the one, that's the big thing. You would need like either ramps or a crane or something, and then obviously if you had a crane, you either need to erect the crane or have something there to use as a pulley system.
Yeah.
It's really hard because they were massive stones, and they're all very well put together.
And there's millions of the stones.
Exactly. So it's really hard. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to bear in mind, Egypt it was rife with sort of slavery and stuff like that.
See, Graham Hancock disagrees. In relation to this, he thinks he has stated that there is no evidence that Egyptian people had slaves. That they were all like architects that really cared about the job that they were doing. I disagree. I think undoubtedly they had slaves.
Well, I mean, they had servants, That's what
And
the
you're not going to
story
have
of Moses is.
yeah, exactly. And you're not going to have like thousands and thousands of architects
Yeah.
who will all care about the pyramid.
Yeah, exactly.
You might have one or two who understand the mathematics behind it.
And it's not going to be all architects. Like, if you build a building, it's not the architects that put the building together.
They just
The
design it.
architects stand there with the plans.
Yeah.
Or even a lot of the time then, it's not the architect that stands there with the plans. It's just the architect that draws up the plans, gives them to someone else, and then they stand there and tell people what to do.
Yeah. But obviously there have been a few ideas on how they built it.
Yeah.
I think people messed around with an idea of there being one big ramp leading up to the top. But the problem with that is it would have to be
Huge.
Actual sandstone, because if it was sand, it'd obviously just collapse.
Yeah.
And it would still be there.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless they decided, oh yeah, we've built this huge ramp, but now we're getting rid of it.
Yeah.
But I saw the one sort of idea that I found quite compelling was I watched this thing where I believe some form of scientist called Jean-Pierre hypothesized that it was built using an internal ramp that was then blocked off. So the idea is that right on the corner at the bottom, you have a ramp going up, and then it turns up, and then it turns up, and then it turns up. But I think the key part to that theory is they left the corners open and they would have a pulley on each of the corners to, when you got to the top of one ramp, lift it up and reposition to go up the next part of the ramp to sort of readjust it. So you'd go up one part, come to a corner where it then had to go up to the left, for example. You'd have a pulley system that just like lifted it up. But you'd have the corner open. You'd have it open, so there's no sandstone. So you go up this tunnel, you come to a corner. On the the tunnel isn't exposed, but the corners are.
Okay.
So you get up to a corner, you have people hoisting up the block. You sort of reposition it so it's in line with the next tunnel, and then you go up the next tunnel.
So this would be going from, let's pick a base, right? A base, you put it in a corner.
Yeah.
And then you would go up one ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would say, let's go to the middle. Or you would go all the way through, for example.
No, you'd go through to the next corner.
Right, okay. And then there, at that corner,
you'd hoist it up
and then
of pulleys to turn it, and then you got the next one, hoist it, move it, da-da-da-da-da.
Okay.
And then the initial problem I had with that was those tunnels would still be there unless, like I say, they blocked it up afterwards.
If they were properly filled in.
Yeah.
Yeah. As well as that, it's still, you still need to erect a pulley system that can hold all that weight in the middle of the desert where there's nothing to counterbalance against.
Yeah.
So they would have had to build some kind of their own pulley system on the pyramids at height.
Yeah.
And that you would obviously need a different tunnel for each level. But then you'd only have one tunnel at a time unless that's what they did. What if they build in one tunnel and then they fill that in as they're doing it, and that creates a tunnel to the next level. They fill it in gradually. So you've got your one tunnel that's dead shallow, and you go up that, you push your stone up that, and you use your pulley system to rotate it, pull it along, place the rock. Then when all the
you come back down, filling it up as you come back down.
Exactly, and that could even create another tunnel depending on how you engineered it.
Yeah.
Depending on, and like we're saying, there were no doubt intelligent architects around that time. There were no doubt.
Very intelligent
because they
people.
built
this ridiculous. That's even like mathematically crazy by today's standards when we have like education and stuff like that. What do you think of the whole sort of electric power plant notion? So I had a little look around because I was hoping I'd come across something like really interesting and intriguing.
Like something like actual evidence.
Yeah, but literally the only thing that makes it even slightly make sense is the fact that it comes to a tip, and you could, through logic in your own mind, you can imagine like thunder hitting the top and it traveling down the pyramid.
Oh, I think...
But that's the only thing that I can think of that would make sense.
I think the more compelling mechanism here would be static electricity buildup from sandstorms and things like that.
Oh, okay.
But it's made of stone. It's made of
There's
stone.
no metal other than like riches.
It's not conductive.
Yeah.
It's and there's nowhere for the electricity to go
or
to,
nothing for it to power.
Exactly. There's nothing, no way to use it.
Yeah, it's a very silly idea, I think.
It's not, again, it's not beyond the realm of possibility, but the way they're built, it's not really, I don't think it's likely.
No, it's very not likely. There'd be some sort of evidence for it, I think, for sure.
They would have to have some way of then siphoning off that electricity to use it.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
And what would they use it for?
Exactly.
You know. Yeah. The pyramids are an interesting one.
They're really big.
They are quite big.
They're really big. And they're quite cool inside.
Did we go in the Sphinx?
You can't, no.
Did we not?
Sphinx was roped up when we were in Egypt.
Oh, okay.
But I went inside one of the Great Pyramids.
So we both did?
Oh, did you as well?
Yeah, because remember, I mentioned this to you a few months back, because I have a completely different memory to you and everyone else. So just sort of explain that a little bit. So I have this memory of entering the tunnel and there being this really cool breeze in comparison to outside. Like proper, like you've got quite a powerful fan blowing on you. But when I mentioned that to you, you remember it being 10 times, well, maybe not 10 times, that's a bit hyperbole, but
few degrees.
Way warmer.
A few degrees.
And then, because I have such a vivid memory of it being cold, I Googled it and everyone agrees that it's really hot.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that memory's come from. Yeah.
No idea.
Strange.
No, but it's interesting to go inside. What you can see is very limited and it's a bit cramped.
Well, it was basically just one long tunnel down into a
main
room.
chamber.
Yeah. Was there like a fake coffin-y looking? I'm sure there was some sort of table.
Fake.
Oh, really? It always looked like a wooden table to me, though.
I'm not sure then.
I can't trust my.
It was like 13 years ago.
Yeah, I can't trust my memories on that. Yeah. I was very young as well, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I was maybe 8.
Yeah,
something like that.
But if you get the chance to go, ladies and gentlemen,
definitely do. Even though Egypt's ridiculously dangerous nowadays.
Don't get killed.
Yeah, don't get screwed up. I can actually remember. You can remember when we went to the museum, and the museum guide used me as an example on what you'd do to a mummy, in terms of like he pretended to like yank my brain out my nose and stuff. Yeah, that was quite fun. Okay, so this is sort of not quite. This is sort of like a bridge between this episode and next week's episode, but it keeps with the theme of ancient Earth. Why are you pulling that face?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. So I've got a little story for you, right, about the Amazon rainforest. So obviously we spoke in episode 3 about how there's space yet to explore and the ocean yet to explore. But obviously there's 3 places really that we can explore, and the Amazon rainforest is the most hospitable one out of the 3. Yeah. You can't live in space. You can't live underwater.
I can live in space.
No, you can't.
Okay.
As much as you'd like to think.
I'm a tardigrade.
No, you're not. You're not a plankton.
They're not plants?
Plankton.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Jesus. So this will sort of show how unhospitable the most hospitable of those 3 places is. So I was basically watching, there's this channel on YouTube called Wonder, and they basically have this series called I Shouldn't Be Alive, which is basically just people who have been in, like there's a guy who spent 26 days lost at sea.
Okay.
And stuff like that, basically. So this one, I'm going to try and give you like the basic rundown to show you how terrifying it would be to live there.
I'll murder snakes.
There's no snakes.
I'll murder spiders.
Well, there's no spiders mentioned.
I'll murder...
That's an interesting... I'd be interested to know how accurate this actually is.
Mosquitoes.
Yes. Okay, so there's this guy called... No, it's not fucking Jurassic Park, fam. So there's this guy called Benedict Allen. Cool. Don't know why. I don't know why he's got 2 first names, but there you go. Maybe it's Benedict and Allen.
There's 2 guys.
So he goes to explore through the Amazon rainforest. His dad was like an adventurer and he wanted to do the same thing. Okay. He had a stray dog that he'd found that he kept with him.
In the Amazon?
He found it in a village close to the Amazon, I believe. And he's looking for El Dorado, the lost city of gold.
Yeah.
And he was lost for 27 days in the Amazon rainforest. Yeah. So he has 2 tribal guides, like people with loincloths on.
Yeah.
that are showing him how to eat, hunt, survive, and stuff like that. And they stumble on a camp, and the guides are sort of entranced by a tin opener. And they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And then they're confronted by these bandit miners. Do you know Danny? Is it Danny Trejo, the Mexican actor, horror film actor?
I kind of know who you're talking about,
but not really.
Don't.
Okay,
I'm not good with famous people.
Just some really far South American miner bandit guy. And they offer to help guide him, and they say, we know where you want to go. Come and stay with us. And he thinks, I'll do that.
Okay, so hang on. They're at camp. These
bandits.
This guy. No, no.
They stumble across their camp.
Okay, right.
So this adventurer stumbles across the miners' camp.
Okay, and then the miners
confront them and say, we can help you.
And they see the tin opener.
That's the tribesmen who see the tin opener.
Okay, there's 3 groups of people. Oh, okay.
The tribesmen are with the adventurer.
Right, I'm with you. The tribesmen are with the adventurers. They stumble across the bandit camp.
The tribesmen are interested by the stuff, by the Western inventions
tin
and stuff.
Opener.
And then the bandits have to guide him. They settle down for the night, and he wakes up and hears them talking in their language about how they're going to kill him and steal his shit. So he grabs his stuff, runs to his canoe, hops in with his dog, and just goes off into the dark in the middle of the night.
Brave.
Yep. So he eventually sort of brushes up against the side of the river, gets out, and camps down for the night. He wakes up and tries going down the river looking for a trail to get out. He loses the dog in the rapids because his boat gets fucked up.
Oh no.
He starts starving to death because he's only eating the tips of ferns.
Should have eaten the dog.
I'm not even going to comment on that. He finds a tree with edible fruits on. This is probably like a week or 2 weeks in. Okay. So he's basically starving to death.
Yeah.
With these edible fruits on that he saw the tribesmen make into this mush.
Right.
So he does that, sort of drinks it down and then throws it back up because his body's rejecting it because he's starving.
Okay.
Then he realizes he's got malaria. So he's confused, his hands are shaking, he's got the sweats. And then after 2 weeks, the dog finds him again. This is what I mean. There's a lot of things that happen where either he skips over some stuff and you go, well, that's rather unlikely. Or it's just stuff that you wouldn't expect could happen, if that makes sense.
The dog finds him. So he's been lost for about 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
2.5.
I think it's probably been like between a few days and a week between him losing the dog and finding the dog.
Okay.
Again. The dog starts lagging behind and not coming with him. So he looks at the dog and realizes there's a lot of meat on that dog.
Yes.
But he can't bring himself to do it.
No. You need to eat the dog, bro.
A few more days pass, and he kills the dog. He cooks the kidneys, the liver, and the heart, and starts eating them. He throws them back up because he's starving to death. His body's starting to give up. He's killed like a dog, like his only friend. He's got nothing out of it. And just as his body's like fully giving up, he sees a cut branch. And he's civilization, yeah. He finds a trail, follows the trail, and then he comes out of the bushes to like someone's back garden with their hut. And the guy's looking at him terrified because he can tell, well, fuck, you're like basically dead and you've got malaria. And then he's fine.
He's fine.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is, like I say, it's difficult to say how accurate that is because, fair enough, I think it happened when he was like 20 odd years old, and when you see clips of him talking about it, he looks about 40 odd. So it clearly happened a long time ago, but he seems so unfazed by it all. And that would if I was out in a rainforest and I spent basically a month starving to death, and I'd killed the dog that had kept me company for that whole time, ate it, and then I'd killed a dog for no reason. That would fuck me up for a long time, I think. I don't think I'd be able to talk about it.
20 years is a long time.
Yeah.
20 years is a long time. It's not that outlandish. I mean, the problem is once you've got to that point where, if he's tried to eat once and he can't stomach it because he's starving.
Yeah.
He's tried to eat again and he can't stomach it because you're starving. you're really kind of too far gone at that point.
Yeah.
There's not really
A lot
anything
you
that
can do.
He would need immediate hospital attention with like an IV and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think the second time, it implies the second time when he tried to eat the dog, it was more because of his malaria as opposed to the starvation.
Right.
But if the first time was due to starvation and that was just like berries,
Why was it not malaria?
when it was a fucking... Yeah, exactly. But I think the reason I bring that up is because it shows what it would have been like to live in that ancient world. Because that's essentially what it would have been, obviously in some parts of the ancient world, rather. In terms of having to survive with no civilization, disease everywhere, danger, death, the danger of starvation and stuff like that. I wouldn't want to go there. even if I knew it'd be fine, I'd be reluctant, to be honest.
If you think about it, though, they probably have more fulfilled lives than a lot of Western people, because
They have purpose and responsibility within their
purpose is
cultures.
to survive.
Yeah.
They actually have to try to survive. That's the big thing for them.
Whereas we don't. We can, realistically, in the Western world, you can get away with doing nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone's fucking depressed.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Because no one has any responsibility. No one needs to do anything.
Exactly, because if you don't want to go out and hunt and gather, then you can just sit on the sofa, watch TV, and get government payment.
Literally, which is what a lot of people fucking do.
A lot of people do that.
But yeah, I sort of wanted to end on that, partially because it relates to the ancient world, and also because next week we are going to be talking about not just the Amazon, but sort of more tribes and tribe culture and stuff like that. And I thought that'd be a nice linking thing to talk about.
Yeah, it's a nice segue from talking about ancient monuments, then talking about what life might have been like for the people that built the ancient monuments, and then segue into the actual people.
Yeah.
For next time.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been nice for them for sure, but more purposeful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you'd need to do things.
And that's what you need to do, people. Find your purpose. And then
Life lessons with Matt.
Life lessons with Matt at Brainfort
Dot
at the
net.
Brainfort podcast.com. But go on.
I wasn't even going to say anything.
You're just doing the mic clean for no reason.
Yeah.
So, what are tribes people really like? Tune in next time
to find
out.
Wow.